All right, we're back to COMP1050 and it's week 6, part 3. And we're talking now about gameplay. So we've got our matching game, but we're going to talk about this place state, okay? So we're going to, right now, all we've done is define our cards and thrown them on the screen. And currently they actually display the cards in random locations. So we're kind of halfway there, right? So the first step is to get each of the cards to respond to mouse clicks, and we're going to add this event listener, just like we did last time. So C, unfortunately, is the card. We're going to add an event listener, mouse event dot click, and we're going to call it click card. Okay. So we have to, in order for us to do that, inside of our ActionScript file, we need to have this flash.events.star imported into our file. If we don't do that, we can't use events. It'll start doing it for you. Like for example, when I was doing the other example for you guys, it imported this automatically. But you should put your imports in manually yourself anyway. Now let's take a look at matching game4.fla. Just keep track of where we are. So I'll go back to Flash. I'll open matching game4.fla. Here we are. And if we look at matching game 4, and if I go to edit my class, I'm going to do it here in Flash Professional this time. We have two import statements at the top, flash.display.star, which is the movie clip class and all the other display list items, as well as all types of Flash events. All types of Flash events. So here, again, just to go over this, I have my constants. This right here is the beginning of my constructor function. I have an array that I've defined a list array for cards. Here I've positioned all of my cards with a nested for loop, right? And I've added them to the screen, right? That's all I've done. But I haven't displayed my card face. I've just added the card to my screen, right? Now when I click on the card, I've created this click card function, right? Here's the event listener for the click card function. And here's the actual handler itself. This is the listener. Here's the event listener. And here's the event handler. There's two parts, right? The event handler is the same name. Here's the actual function that I'm calling right here, right? And I have to define whether I use it or not an event type variable that I'm passing to my function if I'm doing any kind of event handling, all right? So I've got this event called mouse event. In this particular case, I am using it, and I'm saying whatever the current target is, the current target of the event, wherever I click, I'm going to cast it as a card. I can use the as keyword to cast my target click as a card. It's important because this way, whatever I click on matches with this temporary card I'm creating right here. I'm not defining a new card. I'm not doing that, right? I'm taking the existing card and making a reference to that card, all right? And I'm calling it this card, right? And this card, right, as an example, is a reference, right? A pointer to the card object that I have on my screen, all right? Then I'm going to use a trace statement, and I'm going to take that card face property as part of that I defined up here, which basically is the number of the card, right? And I'm going to output it. So all I'm going to do is output the number of the card when I click on it. So the card face, I mean. So if that location has card face number 5, if I click on it, it's going to say 5. If I click on another area and it's card face number 5 as well, it's going to also output 5. Let's take a look and see how this works. So here I am. Here's my card backs. So I click on this one, and in my trace, it's number 13. Click on this one. My trace is number 4. Again, number 4. This one, number 14. So these are the actual numbers that I'm going to, when I click on it eventually, it's going to pull up the faces of my cards, right? Because whatever I click on here, I'm saying go to frame number 15, go to frame number 5, and display that frame of that particular symbol in that location. That's what I'm doing. Okay? This is just preliminary steps. We're taking small baby steps to get there. Okay, going back. So again, I've added this event listener. I have to import this library, this flash.events library, which actually gets imported automatically by Flash. And then what I'm just going to create the handler. So one part is the listener, the other part is the handler, and I'm creating my trace to print out which card is clicked. Current target is a really cool thing because it actually tells you inside the event variable, right? The event variable carries a lot of information. A lot of information. Okay, it carries where it is. It actually has X and Y coordinates. It has what was clicked. Lots of other information. So we want to know the current target because this enables us to use one single handler to click on many, many objects. So I don't have to create a card handler for every object, right? Each individual object would have to have its own event listener. This way I've created an event listener, right, for wherever I clicked on. I've created an event listener here for the card symbol. So any of the card symbols, anything that has considered a card symbol, or in this particular case, the ugly C variable, right, has this, yeah, I know, they called it C. This would have this event handler attached to it, event listener. Okay, so instead of me defining one event listener per card. Okay. All right, so we got to set up some game logic. So one of them would be our state number one, no cards have been chosen, right? That's one state. And the player selects the first card in a potential match. So I click one card. That's a state. Only one card is clicked. State two, one card has been chosen and the player selects another card, a comparison is made, and an action is taken based on what happens with the match. Is there a match or no match? That's state two. State three, two cards have been chosen, but no match is found. Leave those cards face up until a new card is chosen, and then turn them both over again, and then reveal a new card. Right? For now, that's okay. Then we have some other considerations. What if, two cards, you have a match? Maybe you have to remove cards, right? You have to remove those two cards from the board. How do we do that? So in order for us to take a look at that, let's take a look at matching game 5.fla. So we'll close this one down. This is matching game 4. And we'll go into matching game 5. Here's matching game 5 right here. Okay, again, we're going to open this up in Flash Professional, right? Not Flash Builder. And we're all good here. We've done this is exactly the same as before, except now when we click a card, our click card function, what we're doing is we're saying, which card is it, right? This card is the one that's clicked. Now we're saying this, if the first card is equal to null, right? First card. And again, if you look up here, we've defined a few more variables. We've defined a variable called first card and a variable called second card. And we've created them as, we've made an association with the card class, but they're not card objects. They're associations. What I mean by that is they're of type card, right, which we've defined as a symbol, but they're not a new card. They're just they're associated with that symbol type. If anything, they're of a scaffolding or a framework of that symbol, but it doesn't contain any of the symbol's information. Okay? Actually, we see the same thing in C# and in other C-style languages as well, where you can make a reference to the actual object before you've defined it as an object, or associated with an object at all. Again, I could have made this instead of card, I could have called it movie clip. It would be the same thing, right? It's a generic card. It doesn't have any information with it yet. So that's the first thing. So this card is also a card, and we're taking now another type of instead of current target, we're saying the target of the mouse event as we're casting it as a card, okay? And then we're saying if the first card is equal to null. Well, if the first card is equal to null, it means it hasn't been chosen yet. Right? It's equal to null. Right? Then I'm going to assign the one I clicked, right? Because the first card is null. I don't have my first card hasn't been assigned any value yet, right? My first card now is equal to this card, the card that I'm clicking, right? And now I'm going to take first card go to and stop, whatever this card is, card face +2. So turn it over. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying take my card and go to the frame that shows not my card back, but the card of the value of its face. That's what I'm doing when I click on it, the first card. Else if the first card is already equal to this card, right? The first card is already clicked. We clicked the first card, right? And we're clicking it again. Turn it back over. Go back to the first frame. And now empty my first card. Make it equal to null. Erase all existence of any reference to the card that it was pointing at. That's what we're doing here. Else if the second card is equal to null, so the first card has been chosen, or it has been chosen, but the second card is equal to null, right? So let's say that I've clicked on the first card, right? The first card I've clicked on, it's equal to null, right? And I've turned it over, right? If that's true, that's cool. Now, the next time I come through here, if the first card is not equal to null, it's going to check the second condition. If the first card is equal to this card, it's not. Okay, now continue. Else if the second card is equal to null, now I'm choosing another card, then the second card is equal to this card, right? Which means now assign whatever I clicked on to the second card holder, right? And then show its card face, If the first card face, right? Because I've chosen the second one already. This is inside my my second card in a pair kind of thing. If my first card and my second card match, remove the child, remove the first and second cards. And we're using the remove child method to remove them from the stage. Realistically, we should put here stage.removeChild because we're removing them from the stage, but we're going to leave it like this for now because it also works. And the same thing goes for, we're setting both first card and second card to null. Else, if none of those are done, right? So let's say, for example, I didn't click on my first card, I didn't click on my second card, and now I'm clicking something else, like a third card, right? Well, you know what? Go to and stop, turn over the first two cards, right? Make sure that the second card is equal to null, and the first card is equal to the card that I just clicked, and then go show the new card that I'm clicking on. So this game right here, if I run it, actually turns over the cards now, right? That's all it does. So it doesn't really match them up. It actually, if I match them up, it removes them at this stage. So here I am. There's no score right now, right? But as long as I click on two cards, I've got my game logic working now at this stage. If I remember where the position of the cards are, right? Then I can start removing them. There it is. Right? And until I have enough information, where is it over here? Yeah, here. I can start enough information to start removing and making matches with my cards. And you know, slowly try and finish the game. Oops, it's here. And so on. Right? We keep going. But so in other words, the matching stuff works already. We're at the stage now with the fifth iteration of our program that we've got gameplay going. Okay. So again, what we're doing here is we're creating a reference or a pointer. We've got two variables, first card and second card, that are actually a reference or some kind of association with the card object type, but not actually associated with any object type in the beginning. So we say, hey, it's almost like saying, you're a human, but I don't know what kind of human you are. I don't know. You might be a Tom human, you might be, you know, a Kevin human, you might be a John human, but you're just a human. I don't know what kind of human you are. Now I'm pointing you to Mike. You're a Mike human, right? And because you're a Mike human, because I've clicked on the mic, right? Then I know that I'm pointing, I have a value now if I'm pointing to Mike, as an example, or if I'm pointing to Tom. I know it's kind of a weird analogy, but the thing is, when you make an association, it takes the shape of the object, but isn't the object. It's just a reference, an object reference that we're doing here. And we're saying if it's equal to null, and it would be equal to null unless you make it, unless I've pointed to some object. If I say, well, my first card is equal to Mike, right? Now I have an association. Before I didn't, and so it's equal to null. And I'm checking to see if it's equal to null. It means I haven't chosen anything. And I can set it back to null. I can say first card is equal to null, and therefore I haven't clicked on anything. Interesting way of doing things. Okay. I know, maybe not interesting for you, but interesting for me. So we have to kind of check the game over state, right? So we basically, what we want to try and do is after we've been able to click these two cards and removed all these other cards away, we've got to say a couple things. Method one, you could have a new variable where you keep track of the number of pairs found, and every time you find a pair, you increase this value by 1, whatever the value is. And then check to see when it's equal to the total number of pairs. Then the game is over. That's a game over state, right? Method two, you check the number of children property of the matching game, right? Num children actually says how many sprites or movie clips are on the board. That's what it does, right? You can actually check to see how many there are. And then if they reach, when you had 36 cards to it, you have the number of children is 36. And when it goes down to 0, you know you've eliminated all the objects from the screen, and therefore you win. But the problem with that is you might have other objects on there too. Like for example, if you have a score, that's an object. Or if you have a counter, that's an object. Or anything else, a button, some other button, that's an object. So you might have extra objects in there, and so you may not get to the right solution. Then there's method three. It's a variation of method one. Instead of counting the number of cards removed, count the number of cards shown. Okay, that's cool. So you create a new class variable named cards left, or as a private variable, right? It's a private variable with a positive integer, and then you set it to 0 just before the for loops that create the cards, and then add 1 to this variable for every card that's created. Okay, that's cool. So here it is right here. Cards left is equal to 0, right? And every time I create a card, I increment this cards left variable, so it becomes 36 as an example. Then in the click card function, right? You need to add this new code, right? So that, again, what we want to try and do is we want to say cards left minus equals to 2, because we're removing 2 when we click in the place where we actually have a match. So when we have a match, we remove both cards. We reduce the cards left variable by 2. Why did we not hard code it and say 36? Because again, we want to make this game flexible. Maybe we want to have 40 cards. Maybe a different grid one time. We want to make a variation of the game where you have a grid of 10 by 10 or something else. If you hard code it to 36, that's not going to work, right? Again, you can use constants here as well, but I think card counting is just as good. So again, a second frame is added to the movie with the text game over. This is kind of cool, right? Second frame is added to the movie with the text game over. So you have 2 frames. The first frame, right, which is the frame that you're moving to, and the second frame has a game over, a piece of text that says game over, right? So when you're done, you move your frame of the main timeline to that game over frame, right? Like this, so it'll look like this, game over, right? Okay. And this is where we come to the most interesting part. I'm going to pause here because I think it's important that we stop here and we go to, this is a kind of an important part I want to stop, so we're going to come back to this in a second when we start the movie again.